Have you ever wondered where zombies actually come from? The term zombie likely originates from West African languages. Terms like Nzambi or Zanbi, meaning spirit of the dead. But it's more than just a word. In Haitian Voodoo culture, a zombie is not a monster. It's a person who has lost their will, controlled by a sorcerer called a Bokor. As French colonizers arrived in the Caribbean during the 17th century, they enslaved Africans and forced them to work on sugar and coffee plantations. In Haiti, the idea of being turned into a zombie came to represent the ultimate loss of freedom, to be alive but stripped of your identity and soul. In fact, the belief was so real that Haitian law once banned the practice of zombification, treating it as murder. By the 19th century, the concept of the zombie started entering English-speaking audiences through travelogues and reports from the French Antilles. One key figure was Lafcadio Hearn, an ethnographer who documented Haitian folklore firsthand. Later, American writer William Seabrook helped popularize the term in his 1929 book The Magic Island, which inspired Hollywood's first zombie films, White Zombie 1932, and I Walked with a Zombie 1943. But early portrayals weren't innocent. Zombies were often associated with racist fears, depicting black men as mindless threats to white women, a reflection of colonial anxieties and white supremacy.
Are you getting this? Yeah, what is up?
It all began to shift in 1968 when George A. Night of the Living Dead, a film that didn't just redefine horror, but redefined the zombie itself. Before Romero, zombies were mystical figures, brought to life through voodoo spells, tied to cultural fears of enslavement and loss of will. But Romero stripped all that away. These weren't controlled by sorcerers or spirits. They were soulless, flesh-hungry corpses, risen from the dead with no explanation, no master, just an unstoppable instinct to feed. For the first time, zombies became a metaphor, not just monsters, but reflections of us, of death, conformity, fear of the unknown, and the fragility of civilization. Then came Dawn of the Dead in 1978, set not in a graveyard or cursed land, but in a shopping mall. Here, Romero sharpened his critique. The zombies mindlessly wandered through stores, escalators, and food courts, not because they needed to, but because they remembered being consumers. Even in death, they were still trapped in the cycle of buying, wanting, and consuming. It was genius. Romero turned a horror trope into social commentary, a mirror reflecting our capitalist instincts, our obsession with materialism, and our slow slide into spiritual emptiness. And that unforgettable tagline? When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth. A haunting line, equal parts biblical, apocalyptic, and poetic. Fast forward to 2002, and the zombie gets another shocking makeover. Danny Boyle's 28 Days Later doesn't feature the undead in the traditional sense. Instead, it gives us a terrifying twist. Zombies that are not dead but infected. In this film, the rage virus spreads like wildfire, turning people into feral, fast, hyper-aggressive predators. Gone is the slow shamble. These zombies run, scream, and hunt in packs. This wasn't just a stylistic change, it was a generational shift. The fear wasn't of magic or death anymore. It was fear of contagion, biotechnology, and a world that could fall apart in a matter of days. The opening sequence, empty streets of London, total silence, still gives viewers chills, because for the first time it felt possible. 28 Days Later revived the zombie genre and made it painfully relevant to a new era of pandemics, viral fear, and biological anxiety. The zombie was no longer just horror. It was now a symbol of collapse, a vessel for our deepest social anxieties. And in 2010, This symbol exploded into mainstream culture with the arrival of The Walking Dead. This wasn't just another zombie show. It was a slow-burning, psychological study of what happens after everything falls apart. Here, the zombies, slow, decaying, and ever-present, aren't the main threat. The real danger comes from the living, from fear, from greed, from people losing their humanity. The Walking Dead introduced us to a new kind of horror. What do we become when laws vanish? When society ends? When survival becomes the only rule? The zombies became a metaphor for collectivism, groupthink, and the death of individuality. An unstoppable force not because they're smart, but because they're many. They don't reason. They don't negotiate. They just keep coming. Across the world, the zombie narrative kept evolving. In South Korea, Train to Busan, 2016, combined high-speed action with heartbreaking emotional depth. It wasn't just about escape. It was about family, sacrifice, and how crisis reveals our true selves. In World War Z, 2013, the zombie horde becomes a global pandemic, a force of nature beyond control. And Kingdom, 2019, took us back in time, fusing zombies with feudal politics in a brilliantly stylized historical drama. Even comedy found a place, with Zombieland, 2009, breaking the fourth wall and teaching us rules for surviving the apocalypse. Over time, zombies became the perfect universal enemy in media, especially in video games. But to understand why, we need to look at a classic game design problem. Who can the player kill without guilt? Realistic human enemies raised ethical concerns. You couldn't always make enemies based on real cultures, races, or nations. Early games used Nazis and demons, widely accepted villains. But both had limitations. Nazis are tied to specific historical settings. Demons only work in certain genres. Then came zombies, and they solved everything. They're no longer human. They're soulless, mindless, driven by instinct, not ideology. There's no guilt, no politics, no debate, just survival. Zombies were ethically safe, easy to understand, infinitely reusable, and they fit any genre. Horror? Absolutely. Action? Perfect. Survival? Yes, sir. Comedy? Surprisingly, yes. From Resident Evil to The Last of Us, Left 4 Dead to Call of Duty Zombies, zombies gave developers endless possibilities without moral baggage. Interestingly, games often avoid the word zombie itself. Instead, they use the infected, the clickers, walkers. Different names, same idea. They're not human anymore. Zombies gave developers exactly what they needed. A guilt-free, universal enemy. One that made violence feel clean, even when it wasn't. That's why zombies aren't just pop culture icons. They're a solution to a decades-old design challenge. But beyond the scares and the gore, zombies are powerful metaphors. Originally, they represented enslaved labor and the dehumanization of colonized people. Now, they often reflect our critique of modern capitalism, people trapped in exhausting systems, losing individuality. A zombie apocalypse also represents a deep cultural anxiety, a fear that our systems will collapse, and maybe a hidden desire for it. Why fix a broken system when we can just imagine its end? The internet mob mentality on platforms like Twitter resembles zombie hordes too. Mindless, reactive, and ready to attack anyone at any moment. Zombies aren't just entertainment. They reflect who we are, what we fear, and sometimes what we secretly want. From Haitian plantations to Hollywood blockbusters, the zombie has evolved, but its roots, its symbolism, and its warning signs are still very real. Thanks for watching. Stay human while you still can.